Leslie here, Parenting Paused. Let's jump in a bit from last week. If you listened in, we were talking about moving toward our discomfort. And therefore, if we can move into discomfort instead of trying to always control our discomfort, which sounds very logical. I mean, who would want to move toward discomfort, right? As I say, it is a counterinstinctual move to turn toward something that maybe you spent most of your life trying to get away from. And yet, the reason we're moving toward that discomfort is to actually be able to open our ears and listen. So if we're able to listen to ourselves, we may find the root of that discomfort. And then in that place, we may be able to attend to that discomfort instead of projecting onto our children that they are causing the discomfort. Now, often when children act out, remember, they're very young. They have very young regulatory systems. They don't know all the appropriate behaviors for the culture. They're not out to get you. Now, this is the biggest one we all have to learn. Our kids are not out to get you, just like you're not out to get them when you act out. It's a little bit like a pressure cooker or an overflowing pot. It just builds and builds and builds, and you're okay, and you're okay. And then a flip of a switch, right? Boom. I've had that happen so often. I can feel the heat rising up inside, but I think I've got it together. I've got it together. And then boom, I'll say something that I wish I hadn't said. So if you can feel that inside of yourself, often that comes from not taking the time to turn toward that discomfort as it arises, because of course you learned to avoid that discomfort. And yet if I take the time, I just noticed my shoulders went down as I said that. Taking a deep breath, take one with me. All right, then we can turn toward our whole human experience. If you're feeling comfortable, you are going to feel discomfort at some point because they are balanced. We have these laws of nature, there's the laws of balance. So you can't have one without the other. So as you turn back in, as we talked last week, we talked about listening. Now, one of the hardest things I find for parents, and I found this pretty hard for myself also, is to listen to my daughter without coming to conclusions. Right? As I'm listening, I'm filtering through, of course, all my conditioning, all my ideas, all my high values, and then I'm kind of concluding where she is or where she isn't, and then I want to tell her where she needs to be. Have you ever done that before? I'm sure you have, because I think we all do that. It's very hard to actually listen because it's uncomfortable to hear our children say something that maybe we judge or we believe is bad or wrong. So it makes it very hard to step into what I call aware listening. And that requires kind of a dual focus. I have to actually notice what's going on inside. Like, what are my conclusions? What am I hearing? Whoa. And then be willing to feel the discomfort that I may be experiencing, especially if my daughter wants to do something different or she sees something different than I do. This discomfort comes up. And then immediately I come to a conclusion that she needs to learn something or I need to teach her the other side instead of staying in my curiosity and listening deeper and deeper to what my daughter, the conclusions she's coming to. Now, this is such a precious thing to support another human, to understand their conclusions. Then you can ask her questions about those conclusions. You can also share that you came to a different conclusion. So this opens the conversation. But often when we hit that moment of discomfort in what they're saying and what they're believing, it could have to do with politics. It could have to do with boys, girls, men, women, gender, anything that you may have a certain belief believe about, and your child may be exploring. And if they share what's going on for them and it's different than maybe what you believe, it triggers some of that discomfort we've been talking about, then you may come to a conclusion that they're wrong and you're right. I know. It's so hard to hear this because I've done it so often, and I really have to keep coming back, or not have to. I choose to keep coming back over and over and do my best to get curious about how my daughter came to her conclusions. And believe it or not, sometimes it opens the door for me to actually shift my conclusions. All right, everyone. I hope you have a beautiful week this week or whenever you're listening. Remember, you can always go and download the free Safe Seat process that I talk about a lot of times in these podcasts. That is the foundational process that I created so I could move through my not reacting out of my emotional self. I could attend to my emotional being with kindness and therefore come much closer and more present with my using my beautiful frontal lobes to actually step into reality, come alongside myself, come alongside my daughter, and offer deep support. All right, now have a good one. Thank you for listening to this episode of Parenting Paused. If you enjoyed the episode, do me a favor and share it with your mama friends. You can also leave a review wherever you listen, which will support getting the Purejoy message out. Come on over to the Purejoy Parenting Practice Facebook page or join me on Instagram to hear more. And don't forget to download your free copy of the Safe Seat course on the Purejoy website. And while there, check out the offerings page to go deeper in the Purejoy work.